Hey guys, so today as promised I am going to be doing a review on the Morphe James Charles palette. I have looked all over the place, you guys, and I cannot find out for sure whether this palette is permanent or limited edition. You would think that information would be so easy to come across, but I cannot find that information. Now, what I can tell you in terms of availability is it started off on the Morphe website and the Ulta website, and it was in Ulta stores. And now if you go to the Ulta website, it says that they don't have it on their website or in any stores, so gone. They did do a restock at one point. That's when I got mine because I wasn't there on the day that it was released, and then at first I wasn't going to get it, then I changed my mind. I decided I wanted it, and then I had a heck of a time trying to get it, but I got it during the restock. And then as far as Morphe goes, if you go on their website and you go to where the palette is on the website, where it would normally say add to cart or shop now or something like that, it says sign up. That makes me think that they are going to be restocking it at least on the Morphe website. Whether they get any more at Ulta or not, I do not know. The palette is $39 for 39 shades, so I think it's a very good deal. This is the box that it comes in. And I did a video last Friday. It was a try-on video where I was just kind of playing around with the palette, testing out different colors, and doing an everyday basic look with it. Today, obviously, I went for it and used a lot of the intense shades from the palette. Over the holiday weekend, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I guess that means that my try-on video was actually last Wednesday, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I did a bunch of different looks over the holiday weekend. I used nothing but this palette all weekend. On Thanksgiving, I did a copper and brown look. I figured that would be appropriate for Thanksgiving. On Friday, I did a green and blue look. On Saturday, I did an all blue look with every blue that's in the palette, and there are a lot of them. And then yesterday, I did a blue and brown look because there are loads of browns in this palette and palettes. And I don't think I've ever done a blue and brown look before, and I wouldn't put those colors together again, but it was interesting to try because I've seen other people do it, and I think you would need maybe something different for the brown to go with the blues. But anyway, today I decided to just go for it, and I went with the really, really bright, intense shades in the palette, or some of them, because there are a lot of bright, intense shades, and since I had played so much with the blues, I decided to just go for as many of the others as I could that weren't blue. Okay, so here is the palette. There's what it looks like. It's got his signature on it. And it has one of those plastic overlays that are so annoying that have the name of the shades on it. And after like the second day, I couldn't take it anymore. As far as it just getting in the way and being difficult to work with. So what I did was I taped it to the inside of the cover because there's no mirror, and it just says hashtag unleash your inner artist on the inside of the cover. So I'm not covering up any pertinent information or anything. So I taped it to the inside of the cover. And what I did was I took a silver permanent marker, and see those little marks that are underneath some of the shade names? I know you're getting a reflection from the camera and the window and everything, so I'm going to take that down. But those little marks are an S. And what I did was Some of the shadows in this palette are just regular eyeshadows. Some of them are not, in fact, shadows. They are pressed pigments. What is the difference? Pressed pigments are not deemed to be eye safe. So I wanted to know, when I looked at this palette right away, I wanted to be able to see which shades were eye safe and which ones were not. So I put an S underneath the name of every shadow, for lack of a better word. Or I should say, yeah, I put an S under all the ones that are actually eyeshadows. And if you see a blank space there, that means that they're pressed pigments and they're not deemed to be eye safe. Really, there's no other way to say it. If you want to know how I got that information, it's at the bottom of the box on the back. It has it divided into two sections for ingredients. It says eyeshadow and then lists the ingredients and has a little picture of an eye. And then underneath that, it says pressed pigment. It has a picture of an eye with a line through it. In other words, not eye safe, and the list of ingredients. Now, before I bought this palette, I was having some issues with my skin, and I said to myself, oh man, this is the worst possible time to be testing this palette out, because I had like some texture issues going on my face and like irritation. And I also have had problems ever since I bought a certain necklace last summer. I had a horrible reaction to the base metals in the necklace, and now this is all I have left for irritation, is just that little mark right there. And it actually looks a lot worse on camera than it does in real life. In real life, it doesn't even look like a mark. The HD camera intensifies everything that is a flaw and makes you look a million times worse. That's something to keep in mind to my haters. But yeah, so I thought, how am I gonna try out this palette when, you know, a large percentage of the shadows are not eye safe, and I've got irritation on my skin right now. Because even though the skin that was irritated right here was not in my eye, it was still close enough that I wasn't quite comfortable using the pressed pigments on my eyes during that time. So I thought, you know what? There's loads of regular eyeshadows in this palette, so I'll just play with all those and test those out. And then hopefully the irritation on my face will go down or go away, and then I'll be able to test the others. So that's what I did. So for days, I just played with all the shadows that were legit eyeshadows. And today is actually the first day that I've used any of the pressed pigments. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, how are you going to do a review then when today is the first day you've used those? I didn't want to wait, you guys, any longer than I already had to review this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include any information in the description box. After I have more information, I'm just going to have to add to that. So there's been some controversy about this palette and the pressed pigments, and people saying, there was this one girl that she did a video and she was saying that the pressed pigments irritated her eyes and stained her skin. Now, that can definitely happen with pressed pigments, so I wasn't surprised when I heard that. My skin is super, super sensitive, so today is going to be a huge test for me and my skin as to how these are going to react. Because every single shadow, and I have a ton of them doing this look, every single shadow I used is a pressed pigment today. So, yeah, if I get staining or irritation, I will just have to put a note in the description box to let you know about that. So, if you are not watching this video on the day it was released, and you're watching it like the next day, if there was any problem like that, it should be listed there. Actually, what I'll do is maybe, well, if there's staining, it will show up tonight when I remove the makeup. So after I remove my makeup tonight, and I do that usually fairly early in the evening, if there is staining, then I'll come back right away and put a note. And if there was any irritation throughout the day or later on after the makeup was removed or whatever, I will do that as well. And I know that's not ideal, but like I said, I really didn't want to wait any longer to do this review. So, some things that I wanted to mention about this. When I did my try-on video, I said, man, what am I going to use as a transition shade? There isn't one stinking shadow in here that I can use as a transition shade. I was wrong. I was missing the obvious. This is Pinkity Dinkity. It's a pink pressed pigment. Blends right in with my skin. Like once it's blended in, you can't even see it. That is what I used as my transition shade today. Although you'd never know it because as soon as I started to blend it, it just disappeared. And by the way, it is important to note that James Charles himself said that due to the nature of the composition of these shadows, he recommended that for an eyeshadow primer, you either use MAC Painterly Paint Pot or Morphe eyeshadow primer. I don't have the Morphe eyeshadow primer, but I had MAC Painterly Paint Pot, so that's what I used for my look today. And just to keep things interesting and to find out as much information as I could, every day I used a different eyeshadow primer underneath these, and I did see some variation in the way they applied, the way they blended, the staying power. So I think he's absolutely right. I think that the MAC Painterly Paint Pot is the way to go, or you know, whatever paint pot you normally use if you use one as an eyeshadow primer. And like I said, I can't say about the Morphe primer, but I did see some variation in all those things depending on what I use. So I would go with this or the Morphe primer. I wanted to make sure I remembered to tell you guys that. Okay, so if you watched my try-on video, then you might remember that I used this, and I used this, and I used this, and I used this for my eyeshadow look that day because I just wanted to do something simple to try them out and see how it went and what my overall thoughts were or first impressions. And I didn't have any problems, and everything blended beautiful, looked nice. That's one thing that's kind of confusing me, is that I think it was James that was saying in one of his videos, it might have been the reveal video, he was saying that these are more difficult to blend, and I don't know why, but I have not had that experience. And he was saying that especially the pressed pigments would be difficult to blend. I didn't have any problems at all blending these pressed pigments that I used today, and I used a ton of them. So let me just show you what I used. I mentioned that I used Pinkity Dinkity, such a funny name, as my transition shade, and I used the white as my brow bone and inner corner highlight. This, you guys, this is the one glitter in the palette, and the formula of it is really, really different. I don't know that I've ever used anything quite like it. I've seen similar things to this in some eyeshadow palettes that I don't own though, so I think this might be like a kind of up-and-coming thing that a lot of brands are starting to play around with. Because what this is I'm going to call it a transformative eyeshadow. because the look that I did today would not look like what it looked like had I not used this. I played around with this doing swatches on my hand before I did this look today. And you can put this under other eyeshadows and use it as a base shadow. You can put it over other eyeshadows and do like a special effects type of thing. Yeah, this is like a transformative eyeshadow that has a very unique texture to it, and you can play with this, with these other shadows in a big way. So if you bought this palette and you haven't tried that yet, you got to try that. It's really, really fun to play with. So what I did today was, so I started with the paint pot, then I used the white that I showed you as my brow bone highlight. I used the pink as my transition shade. Then I put this transformative shade, which is really called Artistry. I put that all over my lids. Then I went in with this blue right here, which is a matte pressed pigment. It's called Cola, which, why? Why would you name the blue Cola when you had so many other choices? Anyway, I put a little bit of that, patted it on top of the transformative one to create a new color, because this is no longer that color on my eyes because I just put a little bit of the blue over it. Then in the crease, I decided to use, let's see, what did I use in the crease? Oh, the blue. I put a little bit of the blue in the crease. Then I took this purple, which is called Escape, and I dragged a little bit of that down underneath my eyes along the lower lash line, and I put some in the outer part of this look, the outer part of my lids and up above as well. Now if you look at my shadows, it doesn't look like I used this blue, but I did. And I did use different brushes too, so it's not because of like picking up shadow from the transformative one. Very strange. But anyways, yeah, I wanted to do, oh, I know what it was. I know what it was, you guys. It's this pink. The pink is called Skip. That's what I put in my crease. That's why it looks like that. Okay, all right, back up. Sorry. I did not use that blue in the crease. I only used that over the transformative shadow on my lids. I used Skip in the crease. That's why it looks pinky. And then I went with the dark purple, like I described. That's what it was. Sorry about that. Geez, I just did it a few minutes ago too. I can't believe I forgot already. But yeah, so I've played with almost all of these shadows over the course of the weekend. I used the copper and I think this one in the crease and did that for Thanksgiving. I think I even put a little bit of that in there. And then I used these shades here the next day. And then the day after that, I used all these blues. Or I think I used 4 of these blues the next day. Then I used this blue with some of those the day after that. One day, the second day that I used the blues, I used this yellow. This is one of the ones that's not eye safe, and I didn't have any staining or irritation. I just remembered that. And so I've played with most of these. I think the only ones that I haven't used, I have not used the lime green. I have not used the black, which now I kind of wish that I had. I haven't used that orange, and I haven't used the red. Other than that, oh, and I haven't used these two golds yet, I don't think. But I've used 92%, we'll say, of this palette. And I'm not going to do swatches, only because there are so many videos out there right now where there are swatches, because it would take so much time. James swatched them in his video, and then there was some controversy about the swatches. Jen loves reviews. I think most of you probably know who she is. I think she just posted a video yesterday called Nothing But Swatches of the James Charles palette or something to that effect. So she's very, very in-depth and thorough about her information. So I would say watch James' video, watch her video, and see, you know, I haven't watched the Jen Loves Reviews one yet, but I do plan on doing that at some point. I don't like to watch too much of what other people say about things until I've done like my own research, because I don't like to be biased. I mean, I'm biased in the sense that I've seen James's video, but I think it was important to watch that because he's the creator of the palette. So yeah, but my overall impression of this palette is that if it does come back into stock and you haven't bought it yet, I feel like it's absolutely worth the money. I haven't had any issues with the performance of the eyeshadows or anything like that. I really enjoy this. I'm so glad I bought it. I can't believe that initially I didn't want to. But to be honest, the reason why I didn't want to is the color story. When you look at this, and I think I may have mentioned this in my try-on video, the color story is warm and colorful, okay? And if I buy a palette that has blues and these types of greens and purples and a pink and a white, and I want to see some cool neutrals to pair with that, and there isn't. There aren't. You can either do a warm look with this palette, or you can do a colorful look, or you can do a colorful and warm look. But in my opinion, what is missing here is a taupe, a gray, a silver. It needs some cooler neutral shades to pair with the cool, bright shades, in my opinion. That's just the way I see it. Now that I'm done reviewing this palette and trying to do a ton of looks, what I really want to do is pull in some shadows that I have, either single eyeshadows or shadows from other palettes, and pair it with this palette to do the kind of look that I would really like to be able to do. When it comes to a color story on a large palette like this, I really wish that he had included a matte gray or a matte cool toned taupe or a silver, or yeah, it needs some more cool things to go with the cool things that are already in here. But that's just my opinion. That's what I like to put with things like that. And yeah, so I think it's worth the money. I give it a big thumbs up though. And I would absolutely buy this again, knowing everything that I do about it. And as far as the controversies go, like I said, today I used, every shadow that I used is a pressed pigment. There is the possibility of staining and irritation, and I'll just have to get back to you on that. I think what the best thing for me to do would be to write something in the description box, because like, okay, let's say that there is no staining and no irritation, and then you go and look at the description box a day later and you don't see any information. You might wonder, well, did she forget? what happened. So why don't I just put something one way or another, and that way you'll know for sure. Yeah, I think that would be best. So after today, or sometime tonight, or at the very latest tomorrow morning, I will write whether it's stained or not and whether I experienced any irritation. And let me tell you, I have really, really sensitive skin. So if it doesn't bother me, it probably won't bother anybody else. I shouldn't really say that because everybody's skin is different. And even with my own skin, I get irritation with my skin some days and some days I don't. So I can only tell you what happens with my own skin, and your experience may be completely different than mine. So you know your skin better than anybody else's. But even if you bought this palette and didn't use any of the pressed pigments, look at all those marks underneath the names. So you can still use most of the palette even if you don't use the pressed pigments. Although I would have to say that the most unique shades in the palette, the boldest, brightest, most unique shades are the ones that are the pressed pigments. So if that's what you're drawn to and that's what you really want to use, then you just need to keep all of that in mind. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Thanks for watching.